So thanks for coming on, Irina. It's great to have you on our YouTube channel. I know that you're like an independent SEO consultant and like specializing in like with GA4 that's coming up, GTM, and also tech SEO. How long have you been doing that for?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm doing SEO in general, I think, for already something like 8 years. Because I started with launching my own projects like blogs. I think it's a kind of usual thing when people studying. And then I moved to international company, and there I was responsible more for digital PR things. And then I moved to being freelancer, and I found that actually tech SEO and analytics, it's kind of thing that I'm interested now more than, for example, PR, because I think that it's great in SEO that you can change your path. So you can change and try different things, actually, being in one field, but specializing in really different things, comparing what you're up to for this period.
That's cool. Like there's so many different parts of SEO. It's easy to be able to switch into a different like specialty, and there's plenty to do and keep up to date within that.
Yeah, and learning. You can always
always
learn something new. Like it's unlimited path to learn, I think.
Well, I guess for today, I know everyone is pretty keen to hear about GA4. We've had like, some clients have already switched over. Others, we will probably need to help set up GA4 and migrate over before Universal Analytics gets sunsetted in July next year. So it'd be cool to see how you usually go about that. Any tips you have, how you would optimize for like setting up different goals, anything like that. And I'll let you share your screen.
So this is GA4, which is demo account from Google. If you want afterwards, you can also check it, because it's available for everybody. So you can get a little bit more details about how you can set up GA4. And I will use this one because other is from clients, so I would not sure that I can share the details. Most probably not. So this one is kind of great for trainings or to understand the basic things, and not very basic, because there are a lot of different things here. So basically in GA4, what is different, that you have quite short menu, I would say. And you have different types of reports, which is kind of reports which are pre-built in GA4. They are loading not very fast comparing to Universal Analytics, but they kind of get there. And you have here the acquisition, the engagement, retention, which is kind of things that get used more or less in Universal Analytics. The interesting thing here that let me also do like that. Yes, you can customize and build your own reports inside reports. So you can click, for example, on the edit comparison or other buttons here, because I think that in this one, they don't give you opportunity to change that, but in your analytics, you can click here and you can edit the whole project to change. For example, you would like to have different channel grouping, or you would like to add filters. So it's possible to do here with this small button, and then save the new report right here. So don't be limited by reports they built in. You can build your own report based on the current settings. Another thing is that you have here Explore section, where you can pre-build any form you would like to. They have a lot of different forms already built in, but if you go to your client analytics or your agency analytics, will be no. I think it will be maybe only one, which is already prepared, or even no exploration forms. And you have different types of forms here. You have free form, funnel exploration, path exploration, and even segment overlap. So different forms, it's kind of like Google Data Studio, but not a Google Data Studio. So it's kind of mix of the options. And the main thing usually you can use, and I use a lot, you can build a free form. And for example, you would like to see from where people are coming, from which desktops, or from which category of the device. Or for example, you would like to understand also the gender. So everything that you're collecting, you can build very easily then new free forms and just save them. The interesting thing here is that if you build these reports, you can only share with them with your team, which you can click here and share. But you don't have opportunity to change the settings for in others free forms. So just be sure that if you need to, you can just create your own one if you want to explore this. What else? I think that you are interested also in how actually to migrate all the events you have for the clients in Universal Analytics. And here you can see they have already a lot of events. And basically there are two options how you can do this. The first one you can create directly here in GA4. So you can click create event and then create this event, which is not recommended actually, because it's much better to do this through GTM. So you can set this in GTM, connect it with GA4, and then you will have these events here when after 24 hours. So I highly recommend to do this through GTM because even you have this opportunity to do this in GA4, it might be that it's not working correctly.
Have you seen that not working very well when if you try to do it in here? Are there like issues?
Yeah, because there are limited settings. So it's much easier with GTM, because in GTM you have, it's much easier to get the trigger you need and everything. So it's kind of much more customizable. While here you have quite limited things, and even I think they even themselves don't recommend to use them. So it's kind of, I don't use it personally now. So because it's also much easier for you to migrate, because if you already have events in GTM for Universal Analytics, you can use the same events with the same settings in just connect to GA4. And if you, for example, migrating manually, it will take much more time for creating them and testing them here. Regarding the goals, goals here has a name as a conversions goal. And it's pretty easy to mark this as a conversion. So you don't need to have any settings comparing to universal one, where you need pretty much complicated process to do this. Here you just click switch off, switch on, and just because it's a demo account, you couldn't do this, but you can see that this button, so it's switch on and then it's marked a conversion. The switch off, it's not being conversion anymore. Also very easy, very straightforward. And you should also be aware that there are some already pre-built events. So for example, page views, session starts and everything. So you will have here not only events you have already created, but some of them which are already existed in analytics. Regarding the settings, when you create the account for the first time, for example, there are 3 things I recommend to do. First is that there is data settings and data retention. When you create an account for your client, automatically data retention is only for, I think he is 2 months. So you need to change manually for at least 14 months.
That is a very good tip.
Yeah, this one is not for the reports. So reporting data will be anyway 14 months, I think. But all of the exploration data, everything you are created, it will be only 2 months if you would not change that. Another really great tip I think you can use here, you can exclude your internal traffic, which I think kind of great. And you can also exclude here the debugging mode traffic, which is, you can also create here the filter for debugging mode. So every time you're debugging and testing something, you would not have this data in analytics. The debugging mode looks like that here. You can go here, and here you can see different events happening. So it's kind of the same debugging is in Google Tag Manager, but you can see the data straightforward in the analytics when you are trying, for example, to see if my event is working, does the page view firing when I'm on the page, and you don't have this data afterwards in the account. So if you will exclude that, then you can test everything and you would not have this data afterwards, because especially for small businesses can be tricky because you don't have a lot of events, for example, and if you have, I don't know, 10 form submissions, maybe it's you and your team actually has done that. What else? Yeah, these two things are very important. Then you can also connect now with Search Console here. And you can also connect with other products from Google, but the Search Console, I think they implemented quite recently. So it's kind of good to have it here.
What is one of your favorite things like that's now in GA4 that wasn't there before or looks different now?
I would say that everything looks different pretty much. Like it's kind of really different. What is, I would say that there are, one of the things is that you have now, you don't have bounce rate anymore. And I think that bounce rate is not very correct metric. They have now engagement rate, which is reverse metric for bounce rate. And I think it's much better actually to see engagement rate and also engaged sessions. So they are measuring more how people are actually, what people are doing on the website, rather than the session just that people users come, and this already like a good goal to achieve. So I like that. I also like that you can see, I think in acquisition, user acquisition and first user campaign, default channel, the first user. So you can see if you choose this one, you don't have this in your analytics. You can see from where this user came from the first time. So for example, if I came first time from the email marketing campaign, it will be email marketing campaign for me. But then if I choose session, it's, well, why it's not giving, but you can go to the traffic acquisition, for example, and then you see that here you have this default channel grouping. So this is the difference. So you can see from where the user came from the first time, for example, from email marketing, but then in traffic acquisition, it will be, for example, organic search afterwards, because after the email marketing, he came from or she from organic search. So it's kind of great. And you can build this as a second dimension to see. This one is, I think it's much easier for you to analyze if you don't have a HubSpot, for example, for returning users. At least you can see this. And you can also understand that, for example, especially from SEO perspective, you can see that, okay, the organic traffic, for example, played a huge role here. So maybe they actually converted from email marketing or from PPC, but they came first time from organic. Another thing is that it's very easy to make events as a conversions. You don't need to have this complicated thing with the goals, which is also
great.
kind of great. Yeah. Yeah, that you have explore section and you can explore different things here. So you can build any reports you need. So for example, if your team asks you, okay, I need to investigate this particular thing. For example, I had a client, it was related that I need to make events for them. And one event, she told me like, no, we have events on the page, we shouldn't have these events. Like there was form submission and she was like, no, we don't have a form here. And I need to investigate this. And this one helped me actually to analyze, I think you can analyze the users time on page. And then I was like, okay, they're staying on this page for almost 10 minutes and they have a video. So after the video, they have a pop-up with the form. So it wouldn't possible to understand it because I have not known that website that well. So you can see that, okay, if everybody who has this event stayed on the page at least 10 minutes, maybe they watched video and maybe it's something after you watched the video. So it's kind of not possible to have this data in Universal Analytics also. So I think this is the second one. And the third one is that there are some already pre-built events like outbound clicks. I think that file download like PDF. So you also don't need to press set it up. You just have them there and that's it. So it's also kind of great. It's here, I think, data collection. And you can also have Google signals some more data about your users if you're okay to collect this. So also a lot of predefined things.
With the explore section, can you actually connect that with Data Studio?
No, directly you could not connect. No. And the downside here is that you have a little bit different dimensions and metrics available here and in Google Data Studio. So there are some of them still missing. For example, I need to build a report about exit pages and you have them here, but you could not build them in Google Data Studio yet.
Should make them all consistent.
No, it's not consistent now. Like,
yeah.
So there's even, I think some of the names are not exactly the same. So it's kind of, but I hope we will get there because we have 8 months to migrate. So they need to get all the things we need from Universal One to have them in the basic settings.
So you think they're still kind of making like iterative changes with GA4 as it rolls out?
Yeah, because for example, I think that people were complaining that they don't have bounce rate and they implemented engagement rate quite recently. So they hadn't had it before. So it's kind of possible that they will roll out other features which you usually use in Universal One.
So have you been spending a lot of time setting up or doing like debugging or like setting up the different reports for GA4 for some of your clients?
Yeah, usually I try to understand what they actually used in Universal Analytics. And then we try to rebuild the same reports in GA4 if it's possible. Most probably it's possible, for example, they don't have here the page views, like all page views report, and it's possible to build it either in explore section or in the report itself. So yeah, you just understand, okay, what you have used in Universal One, the most important for you, and try to rebuild it here, basically.
Do you say that you've got like quite a few like the custom filters that you've saved in the the tab above this, like out of explore in the above section? Would you recommend kind of like building out like the most used reports, I suppose, for each client that we save there.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, because when you create the report, they are, I think they're in. You have a library here because they don't have in demo account. You have the library here, and then you can build a lot of reports, but you don't need to add all of them in the menu. So you can then connect from the library the reports you use the most, and they will be here in the main menu, and all others can be stored in the library if you use, for example, them, I don't know, one time per year.
Yeah.
To analyze something.
Does anyone else have any questions while we're on GA4?
Yeah, I have a question. Trying to build a Google Data Studio report at the moment using GA4 data, and I couldn't find average session duration in there at all. Do you know if it's off the top of your head? Do you know what it's under? What the name would be? I tried searching a lot.
I think I have not actually added it myself, but if it's not in Google Data Studio list, most probably it's not available here yet.
Yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, because the exit pages, I also need to make it like 1 week ago, and I was like, okay, you can build it only in the Explore section now. So in the Explore, yes, you can do this because everything is available, but in Google Data Studio, they can miss some of the very important things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question.
For any of the things that, you know, you've noticed that are here, but are not in Data Studio or something, have you ever contacted the team that built it to be like, yeah, can we please, we need this, like this is my like a wish list, you know?
I think that when you Google, for example, for exit pages, you Google, and there are a lot of already people complaining about that.
Yeah.
And so you already you have seen that people are complaining because they also don't have opportunity to check IMP pages. So you miss all the traffic there. And a lot of people are already complaining about that everywhere they can. So you can only complain with them.
Got a question in the chat as well from Matt. He's saying that he's recently come across recipes or templates for tags in GTM, and did you, Irina, have any experience or thoughts on that? Or would it be best to set up custom tracking?
You can use recipes if it's the trustful source. So for example, there are a lot of professionals out there who are building recipes, and it's much easier to use them either to try to build this on your own. For example, I know that Sima Hava, which I can share the link afterwards, he has built the recipe to track core web vitals through GTM. So it's kind of not very easy code which you will develop yourself. So it's much easier for you just to use this. Just test this and see that if everything is working correctly and it's trustful source. So you know that this person is expert in this field. So I would go. I don't use a lot the recipes because I don't need this complicated tracking. But if you need, you can do that.
And then if no one else has any questions for GA4, I was just going to ask, like, for GTM, like with setting up or migrating over, like, have you seen any like common pitfalls or any tips on that?
Regarding GTM, the main thing I would say that if you can, I would implement all the tracking there. So if you have a Universal Analytics GA4, I would implement directly through GTM. So you don't need any other codes on your website, which is pretty better from page speed. And it's also much easier for you to manage because you don't need to ask the developer like, okay, can you change this? Can you change that? It's a kind of thing that you are doing yourself as a marketer. also, if you are like the beginner, the mistakes I had made when I just started with GTM, that be aware that when you track the form submissions, there are kind of different trackings depending on the CMS you use. For example, for WordPress, you can make one setting. For custom one, you can do another setting, but be aware that the event is firing correctly when the form is only submitted successfully, because sometimes you have a lot of events and you check, you don't have a lot of form submissions, like half of them are missing. And it's most probably because you track not successful form submissions, but just the form submission, which person tried to actually submit. Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating because you then think that, okay, why I have not incorrect data. So just try to debug it and then also come back in a few days and check that you have the correct information in the backend, especially for form submissions. Another thing is that we had one client where they have a lot of clicks for telephone number, because you can measure in the GTM that how many people are clicking on the phone in the and they were complaining that we don't have that much phone calls, but we have a lot of events. And when I checked on mobile version of the website, the button, I think, to close the cookie pop-up was right there on the email, on their phone number. So a lot of people are accidentally not clicking to close the pop-up with cookies, and they are accidentally clicking to call this company. So basically we had a lot of events.
No.
Yeah, and it was kind of annoying. So just to be aware that it can happen. Sometimes it's not your fault that you have set it up something wrong. It just check how it looks on different devices.
Well, apart from like GA4 and GTM, what else are you currently working on at the moment?
I work also quite a lot with tech SEO. So kind of audits to understand how to cover vitals audits also. So if you have any questions related to that, you can also ask.
Hey, Irina, sorry, I do have a question. If you don't have access to sort of like the link on your own domain, so like, let's say, for example, you have a CTA that links to like a Facebook Messenger, is there a way to track that? Like, I know you mentioned tracking the telephone number. Would it work the same way as that?
Yeah, it should work the same way. So if you have in the code, if you have the href link, which is linking, for example, to Facebook Messenger, then it should be possible to track this. So it depends on, because GTM works like if you can connect the trigger to any part of the code which is firing. So it could be the button click, it could be the URL click, or text click or image click, so something which can be translated to GTM as an event.
I see. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
I think
you can also,
yeah,
I
just
think
go ahead.
You can also track in the iframe. If you, for example, have any iframes, I don't know, sometimes forms are implemented through iframe. You can also track these events in GTM, but you need to add the GTM tag in this iframe. Then it's possible for you to collect this data. Because some of the, I don't know, I think that especially forms, they sometimes, if you implement from any other third parties, you have iframe on the website. So you can do that if you can add GTM.
It's a good tip as well. I think once we start implementing for all the clients, I'm sure there'll be little things popping up along the way as well. Have you kind of set that up for like a lot of your clients at the moment?
The iframe tracking? Or you,
just
or general?
in general, yeah.
In general, for GA4, yeah, I think that I migrated, all the clients are ROC. So it's, I have the projects, so I take the projects where I need only the migration part. So do the from Universal Analytics to GA4. For these projects, I have done, I think, 3 during the summer. So, but for almost, I think it's already 10 or 12 websites, because in one project they have a lot of websites already in, like they are similar, but you need to change it for all of the websites, basically.
It's a lot of migrations. I think we've got another question as well. Darcy said, if we move an existing UA tracking tag from one GTM container to another, would the tracking remain set up?
Yeah, it should not be a problem. The main part that the GTM is implemented at the same places in the code of the website, but you can migrate it from one GTM to another without any issues. If you, for example, maybe don't have an access, sometimes it happens because, for example, you had another agency which implemented GTM and you don't have the access to this GTM, you can easily migrate, but be sure that you delete everything so you don't have 2 GTMs in the code.
And when you're doing the migrations, I'm sure there must be so many different settings and things to check and move over. Well, like for your own processes, do you have you got like a checklist or something to like go through everything, or it's all in your head, like you already know what you need to do?
I try to make it customizable for customers. So usually I have a Google Sheet, like every SEO has Google Sheet. Yeah, and I try to make a plan based on that. So if you, for example, events they would like to migrate, I have a list of all the events they had in Universal Analytics. Then I have all the reports they would like to migrate. If there are any custom dimensions they would like to migrate. So I kind of built this customizable for every client. Most of the things I shared with you, I don't have as a checklist. I think it's actually good to have it. But yeah, it's mostly in my head, like, okay, we need to make this data retention, debugging mode. So it's kind of but there are not a lot of things you need to do. So that's why the most complicated things is actually migrating all of these different parts than the setting up because setting is quite straightforward. I would say when you have done that 5 times, if you do this during 1 month, for example, you already have this in mind. If you do this not that frequently, then it's much easier to have a checklist, because sometimes I just forget. For example, I have done this, I don't know, 6 months ago, something else, and then you don't remember how to do that.
Well,
Hey, Irina, sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Richard.
Sorry, I do have a technical SEO question. One of, I guess, the things on our checklist is to see if content doesn't load on the website if JavaScript is turned off. What kind of recommendations would you put to fix this sort of issue?
You mean you already know that it's not loading, or you would like to check is it loading or not?
No, like we already know that some of the content doesn't load when JavaScript is turned off, like we've tested it already. I just don't know, I guess, what's the best recommendation for it, like if we were to suggest something?
I would say that here I would suggest that if it's critical content which you need to be indexed, you need to make it not in JavaScript. that's the thing. So, but usually what I have, I think recently I had on Brighton SEO somebody talked about that ideally Google should be see the JavaScript content without any issues. So directly, if it's indexed and you see that the page is indexed correctly, then it should be okay from indexing perspective. So if you are worried about that.
Okay, yeah, cool. Sounds good.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, sometimes I check the part of the, if it's a text, you can check, is it indexed or not? So if it's indexed, then you should not worry, like even if you switch off JavaScript, okay, but it's, yeah, it depends what, why you worried about that. If it's indexing issue, then check if it's in index, if it's for user, is it critical content, and some people can miss the opportunity to see the important part of the website.
Yep, I see. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Al, I was just going to ask you earlier, like what are the kinds of tech SEO projects are you working on now? Like what niches are they in?
I have retainer clients mostly, so I don't take as a project. So I think I take on the analyticals as a project. But for retainer, for now, for example, I have a lot of struggles with hreflang because the website I'm working on, they implemented new languages, but they haven't asked SEO how to do it.
Implement
so
first, hreflang later.
Yeah, they just implemented and everything like not working correctly. Like you have a lot of broken links, you have canonical issues, and they're like, no, guys, please. So yeah, this the kind of things. So to understand that actually you the pages you need to be indexed are indexed, and the pages you don't need to be indexed not indexed. So this
doesn't kind sound good. Has that been like I'm sure that's probably one that's a reoccurring issue for a lot of clients, like in multiple countries, multiple languages. Have you had any other situations where you've had to turn that around and resolve that was challenging, or like saw great like uplift after that?
I have, yeah, for one of the clients, they have domain, you know, like for example, it's domain.com, and then they had the same pages, domain.com/English version. So they are both indexed, and even with the canonical tags, because the canonical was on the main website, not with the English, because basically the main website is in English. And we had not really good rankings for these pages because there were two different pages ranking, like basically. And when we implemented it finally correctly, they deleted all of these English pages, not only to make it canonical, but they actually deleted these pages. Then we have seen that we have an increase in rankings because before you send different signals to Google, I think that it was like complicated for bot to understand which one is the most important.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like one of the previous expert calls as well, he had hreflang pop up, so it's always sure to come up. What else have you been working on? Like
also another tip, I think it's every SEO knows that, but not every developer knows that, or maybe focusing on that sometimes they have staging website indexed. So it's kind of, I think multiple clients with this issue, and for most of them, you don't have any issues with the indexing and rankings because the main domain is the main for Google, and it's kind of okay, while you should be worried, but it's okay. But for one client where we had quite small domain, there are some pages which were not indexed because staging website was indexed, and it was outranking basically the pages of the main website. And when I found out, because really good to check Google Search Console and check if all the pages which you need to be indexed are indexed, because I checked and I was like, okay, these two pages are not indexed. Like, why? Because there are nothing wrong, everything like working correctly, it's WordPress website. And yeah, I checked that staging website indexed, and pages with the same content already there. So basically, this is very easy to fix, but it was super easy to see how rankings are going up, like this one. So just
Yeah,
resolving
that's,
this small issue.
yeah, definitely another issue you have to check for. Any other like subdomains or staging that shouldn't be indexed, but then they do, and that can be like a security issue as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but
sure.
sometimes you even don't know, because they had like different staging websites, so different subdomains. So you, for example, checked for one, which you are aware that exists, but there are another one which maybe was created by somebody else, and you don't know that. So it's kind of, you need to investigate it sometimes. So it's not that straightforward.
Yeah. I'm interested as well. I know you mentioned that like before you kind of specialize in digital PR. When did you kind of like switch over, and like you kind of felt like you needed a change, or what are your thoughts on digital PR now?
I worked in digital PR in-house. So I was first starting in Russia to build some links. It was classical in building that as a company. We moved to digital PR. Then we moved to Asia. I actually lived a little bit in Asia, in Kuala Lumpur, and even worked with Australian market a little
Cool.
bit.
Yeah.
So, and that time I was leading the team of the digital PR managers. So one of the team members were working actually with Australian market. And after, when I left the company, I had like, I should understand, like, should I prioritize in digital PR or not? Because in digital PR, we need to know the markets well. So for example, even with Australia, we have not had any local people from Australia when we started. And you need to know all the media, everything. So it's kind of, it's much harder than, for example, to help with tech SEO. Because technical SEO, it doesn't matter where you are. Even if you don't know the language, sometimes you can help the company to succeed. But with digital PR, it's tricky, because you need to know the journalists, you need to know what is going on in the news to be to create something that's actually interesting for the audience. So that's why this is one thing. And another thing, that it's kind of frustrating in digital PR that your KPIs are really connected to the journalists. So either they have a good mood today or not. So you kind of, I would say that it's frustrating. And when we worked, I think with Singaporean market also, because it's super, super small, like you don't have a lot of media there, and you need to get some links, some mentions. And it's, my team members were super frustrated when you don't meet your KPIs, especially because we have been a global team. And we compare with different teams, and you compare Singapore, I don't know, with, for example, with Finland, and Finland are super open. They publish not everything, but they're kind of publishing a lot of different things, and the same content, which is really working good in Finland, doesn't work in Singapore. And like, it's not because the person is not doing their job on the level you wanted, just the market. So yeah, this is the reasons I transitioned from this one. Yeah, I think it's easier as a freelancer to be a technical SEO, analytical, or just all around comparing to be digital PR, if you would like to work with different markets. If you work with one market, for example, in the UK or in Australia, it does make sense.
Are you working across a lot of markets now?
Yeah, I work with international projects, so they are all English, but they, for example, targeting all English-speaking countries. And then from UK, and I had some local projects in Italy too. I don't speak Italian so well, but also from technical point of view, or when I can give some kind of content recommendations, so I can do this because I at least know the language. So it's basically that. But for example, I couldn't do digital PR in Italian. It wouldn't be possible for me at all. For now.
Maybe back to
Maybe
it
later.
later. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll see if anyone else has any questions. Or do you have any questions like you want to ask us, or any other areas you want to chat about as well, Irina?
Yeah, maybe you can also a little bit share what projects you are doing and what is specialization and everything, because I kind of only know the basic things from your profile and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, types of projects. I think we're mainly focusing like on the clients in the Australian and New Zealand market, maybe some in the US, kind of more like the medium to like enterprise level clients. So we're pretty specialized, and like I'm working with clients like in the like finance, like home loans and insurance niche. And then we've got like some FMCG clients as well. What else? You've got some legal, we've got more medium-sized businesses that are like marketplaces and in crypto. So it's a broad range. And yeah, I think within prosperity, we've got like everyone specializes in a few different things. So like from my end, I originally came like from the like publisher SEO side, and then kind of transitioned more into like enterprise SEO as well. And then we've got, what else? We've got some people that like to do more tech SEO, hence the some of the setting up questions. But yeah, we do across the range. I think being here in Australia, we don't have to do international SEO as much as you probably have to face in Europe like every day, but you've got those kind of questions coming up as well, like clients in a few different countries or who want to look to expand overseas. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting when the expanding projects, because the market, to learn new market, it's always interesting, I would say.
A lot to learn, like, because yeah, every country, the customers will be different, and then there'll be hreflang and content localization and all of those things. Yeah.
What was or maybe is the biggest challenge you had so far with the clients? Or maybe
Biggest
the
challenge.
particular client? Yeah.
Well,
maybe they're not the biggest,
yeah,
but the recent one.
or one of the recent ones, like without going to specifics, you know, it's always, I think it's always just about, you know, like stakeholder management, and especially agency side, we're working with in-house teams as well. And, you know, like, you know, preaching for SEO to, you know, get more attention, and how, you know, they should be focusing more on organic. That's always one of the biggest ones, education. And I'm sure you must have that a lot with your clients as well.
Yeah, I agree totally. Because sometimes I'm surprised that people are paying for SEO, but they don't want to do anything for SEO from their side.
Yeah,
like
requires effort.
Yeah, so there are not only like budget you have, but you need to implement things. Actually, it's not in the SEO hands to do everything. So I kind of understand that.
I just thought of a massive issue from a long time ago. I remember we were working with an e-commerce site that was making millions of dollars, and someone added a homepage canonical tag to the whole site, and they lost like 50,000 pages from the index. This is like a very well-known brand. So like they cost them millions of dollars. It was like some developers stuffed up, and luckily we picked it up pretty quickly. But yeah, that was one of the worst things I've seen happen. Another bad one I remember is opening hours. There was a Google glitch, and for liquor stores, like a national brand, and the wrong opening out and closing hours were showing from Google, and people were turning up to buy alcohol like late at night, and the shop was closed, and they're getting very angry, and there was hundreds of people blowing up. They're two major issues I can remember.
Yeah, that's kind of something you will remember, I think, the whole life, losing this money.